Sun Yat-sen was a 20th century significant figure that lived a heroic life that demonstrated the church's model of servant. He was born in Cuiheng, southern China in 1866 to a poor peasant family. Unlike other kids of wealthier status, Sun wasn't expected to live out a life as more than a simple farmer. His older brother went over to the US to work as a laborer in Honolulu and used his salary to send Sun to the Protestant boarding school, where he picked up English, was taught about Christianity, learned about how the American government evolves and functions as the federal democratic structure, how the British constitutional monarchy functions, the American Revolution, and the reunification of Germany and Italy. When he finally asked his brother for permission to be baptized, though, his brother decided to send him back to China. When Sun returned to China, he saw the backwardness and superstition of his hometown and tore down the statue of a deity, getting banished from Cuiheng to Hong Kong. While in Hong Kong, he was baptized a Christian and got a medical degree to open pharmacies, and was known for giving away free medicine to those who couldn't afford it. Zooming out to the entirety of China, ruled by the Qing, it had suffered a century of humiliation, being invaded and forced to give away control of Korea, Vietnam, Taiwan, outer Manchuria, and vital Chinese ports as colonies to the British, French, Portuguese, Russian, and Japanese. Much of the people had been thrown into poverty, with the loss of artisan jobs to cheap foreign goods, addiction to British opium, and violence from the potentially deadliest rebellion in history. Sun was inspired by calls to improve China with reforms that would help distribute lands to the peasants, free trade that let anyone start their own business, and improved education for families like his to improve their own lives. However, when he arrived to Beijing to show his petition, his ideas were immediately rejected by Qing officials. In the northern city, he saw open corruption everywhere that put such a distinction between the rich and the poor. From this experience, he would form the Revived China Society to establish a federal republic, stating, "I am a doctor, but before treating my patients, I must first treat my country." This group was deemed dangerous by the Qing government and banned from Hong Kong, with him and other members soon being hunted down to be arrested. Sun barely escaped by taking refuge in the church to then take a trip to Kobe, Japan. He would be in constant exile for the next 16 years. Sun's old teacher, Dr. James Kennelly, invited him to meet in London, where Sun spent days reading in the British Museum Library, refining his ideas to improve the lives of people back in China, especially studying Lincoln's words of "the people, by the people, and for the people." Young Chinese students were being sent abroad to Europe and America by the Qing to help study and implement reforms to maintain their grip on China. Of these students, however, many soon saw the ineffectiveness of the old system back at home and wished for the monarchy to be replaced with an American judicial, executive, and legislative system. Sun collaborated with these foreign Chinese students, spreading his ideas, and with these interactions developed the three principles of the people that are nationalism, all Chinese united for self-determination; democracy, total inclusion of all citizens and the people's livelihood; economic reforms to combat poverty, fair land distribution, and tax reforms. His reorganized ideas recruited many people from Singapore to Japan to join the Revived China Society, from heartland monarchists that only cared about a strong Chinese state to what were considered as radical feminists like Qiu Jin that spoke out for an end to forced marriages, foot binding, and education being limited to boys, and Qing China to all people. She wore Western men's clothing in the streets of Tokyo to express her beliefs in gender equality. Over the next 6 years, from 1900 to 1907, Sun led and collaborated 8 uprisings, with every single one failing. The 11th uprising started with a small protest against local issues, but quickly escalated when Qing police shot protesters. Soldiers joined the 11th uprising on the protesters' side, quickly spreading it and taking control of 22 out of the 30 Chinese provinces. Sun went off to Washington, D.C., London, and Paris to help spread support for the uprising. When he got back to China, he was voted in overwhelmingly as the provisional president of China by the people. Sun went into negotiations with Yuan Shikai, the military leader who controlled much of northern China, where the Qing imperial family fled to. Yuan offered to make the child emperor Puyi and his officials step down, but in exchange, Yuan would get role as the new president of the Republic of China. Soon agreed and gave away almost all of his political power, as his ultimate goal was to end the Qing and replace it with a Chinese state, not be the leader of that state. And with that, 206 years of Qing rule, as well as over 3,000 years of dynastic rule, ended in China. Now part of forming the KMT Chinese Nationalist Party, soon gives the last remains of his political power as leader of the party to Song Jiayuan, and takes up a job working on the railroad construction to improve Chinese transportation. Yuan, back in Beijing, after gaining the presidency of China, assassinated his political rival Song. He then declared Sun and the KMT a rebel group, exiling them to Japan, ceded Mongolia to the Russian Empire, sold off most of China's major industries in Manchuria to Japanese colonists, and gave away provinces to warlord governors, and finally crowned himself the new emperor of China. After his coronation, no one in China supported him, and he would abdicate, leaving most of China under the control of warlords and gangs of leaderless soldiers that pillaged the countryside. Soon on his way to Beijing, discovers he has liver cancer and dies on March 25th, 1925, never truly seeing his dreams of a democratic Chinese republic. While figures as major as him left vast sums of wealth behind, soon for pouring every excess amount of money into his dream of a republic, left his wife with only a single house in Shanghai and the equivalent of only $1 million. Sun Yat-sen lived the church model of servant heroically. When those as influential as him exploited the people for their wealth, he yet lived a humble life without excess, always living amongst the people when he could. He reminded me of St. Vincent de Paul, always working to help people, promoting equality, and dedicating his life to learning and teaching his thoughts.